I want to get a perspective on this from Saman Nasseri, who's an immigration lawyer. He's based in California, but can certainly speak to many of these issues. Thank you for joining us. Okay, let me start with where I started with Caitlin on this whole idea if President Trump goes after local officials, right, who don't want to cooperate, then what? What would happen?
So if he starts going after local officials, you're going to start seeing a shift of local law enforcement, local sheriff's departments start cooperating with their local ICE offices because that all trickles down. So you don't want to deal with that extra headache. I will say that their first priority is going after people who have criminal records or serious criminal history.
Yep.
It's not this targeted, let's just start raiding homes and workplaces.
So I guess, does it matter what the local official's view is? Like Adams, like Adams seems to be, changing his views on some of these. Will that matter legally once we get going with this?
It's not going to, well, does it matter for the city or does it matter legally, right? Because does it matter legally? Generally not. Does it matter for the city? Most likely. So, for example, I'll use San Diego, where I'm at, as a good example. Our local sheriff's department, although San Diego is technically a sanctuary city, our local sheriff's department has said they are going to cooperate with ICE and they are going to turn people over because they don't want people sitting in limbo and they don't want to have to deal with the federal government coming into the jails or the sheriff's department and causing trouble.
So we've talked about New York already. We had the report from Caitlin, and she mentioned Chicago, I think. But if you really want to look at an area that a lot of people expect to be kind of the ground zero for this, Trump versus a state, your state, California, comes up a lot. So what would you say about what's happening out there? Saw some indications in an article about how, migrants are kind of trying to lie low. What's going on in California right now?
Yeah, so what we're seeing in California is interesting, right? Because there are red cities, there are blue cities, there are a lot of purple cities here in San Diego too, or in California. But the issues here is what you're starting to see is people getting picked up from the jails. We have reports of ICE hanging out in parking lots from the jails, or people being released from prison or jail here locally in San Diego or Los Angeles, Orange County. You're starting to see raids of people who've been previously deported getting rearrested, old warrants being issued. But there's a little bit of a stall at the border, and then people going into custody at the border and then sitting in custody for what will be a long period of time.
Are you getting you're an immigration attorney. What kind of, are those the type of calls you're getting? What kind of calls are you getting at the office?
Yeah, the bulk of the calls we're getting right now are people who are detained at the border and they're just somewhere in the processing timeline. And what people don't realize, what people don't understand is because of the sheer numbers of apprehensions at the border, that processing is not an 8-hour, 24-hour process. It could be weeks before that person is processed, especially with interpreter shortages, housing shortages, contacting family members, if the person has immigration history, what country they're from, background checks. So you might not hear from a loved one for 2 or 3 weeks if they're getting arrested at the border. All
right, Saman Nasseri is an immigration attorney in California. Thank you, sir, for coming on. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.